Alright, feels kind of wrong to start this video with a smile, but again, you know, death is a part of life and a part of, inevitably, of everyone's life. And as much as I successfully managed to not bother with stuff like this as movie people or people related to movies and all this kind of stuff died over the almost 4 years of Huge Movie Fanatics existence, within the last month, I just find it impossible to not, you know, having done the Betsy Palmer video I did, I don't think it was even a month ago. At this point, I find it impossible not to, mention this, which unfortunately is very, very, very recent news. It's Wednesday now, I think, and this news happened on Monday. Which is that the film composer James Horner died in a plane crash on the 22nd, on Monday, June 22nd, 2015. I guess it must have been some private, they described the plane or whatever, but I mean it was just him and the pilot, from what I understand, somewhere in California, just traveling from one place to another, and down she goes. So I just you know, it was crazy how many years I made it without doing this, and then all of a sudden, like I say, I think within a month I'm doing, you know, 2 of these. But it was impossible for me to not mention this because James Horner was a huge part of my life ever since I was a kid. I was trying to think, you know, what the first thing I would have heard, the first movie that I can remember that I would have heard his music in, and I think the first Star Trek I saw in the theater was Star Trek 3. And I remember being, you know, as a kid, you know, a movie is a combination of a lot of just visuals and audio, and you're not necessarily, or at least speaking for myself, not necessarily aware of, I mean, it all goes together, it's all one. And as a kid, you know, you're moved by things, but you're not necessarily sure of what. But in any rate, in retrospect, I mean, I know that I was very moved by, you know, the music for Star Trek 3, because I hadn't seen 2 at the time, we just saw 3. I think Star Trek 3 might have been the first movie I saw, or something like that, I can't remember. Star Trek movie, not movie, but Star Trek movie. And so surely, like Star Trek 3, you know, Commando and Aliens, of course. Aliens, I actually would acquire probably in 1988 or 1989, the audio cassette of James Horner's score for Aliens. I love the track, or the cue, where, you know, where Ripley takes charge of the military, you know, military armored vehicle in you know, the action scene where the aliens, you know, are just killing the Marines, and she goes into you know, it's just such amazing music. And as a, you know, 12-year-old, you know, I'd turn that on in the living room and I'd dance to it like some kid would dance to, you know, Metallica at the time, or some kind of whatever, you know.
You want to have Robocop in the car? And we'll animate this, right? So first I want to do that one. Yeah. We start down one that looks like this? Yeah, exactly. Oh, get ready. Oh, we can't do it because we can't bring the VCR and the TV. We'll just film it on this.
So, I just wanted to say that. I just wanted to say thank you, you know, just like Betsy Palmer, I wanted to say thank you, James Horner. Obviously, you know, your first impressions of, you know, your stuff that I saw in Star Trek 3 and Commando and Aliens, and then, you know, a couple of years after I bought the audio cassette soundtrack score for Aliens, you know, one of my favorite movies, and still one of my favorite film scores, would come out, Rocketeer, which is just in my opinion, one of the most, you know, all-around perfect movies, you know, and it, you know, basically a perfect score. One of the things that makes it a perfect movie is the perfect score that accompanies it, and that's one of my, you know, probably my favorite James Horner score, The Rocketeer. And I just found this out yesterday, so I'm still just like, anyway, I don't want to go too long with this video. I just wanted to, I couldn't go without saying something about this. Obviously, he did the music for, as years went on, I thought that his stuff for me wasn't necessarily as great as like the 80s and 90s and stuff. Like, I think like, as good as, like stuff like Titanic and even Avatar isn't for me as good as Rocketeer or, Star Trek 2 and 3 and stuff. But obviously, you could hear James Horner in, Titanic and Avatar and stuff. And I just wanted to say my piece and say once again, thank you very much, James Horner, for, he was only 61 apparently. Thank you very much for the amazing contribution to the motion picture music. I mean, he was, in my opinion, one of the best composers, film composers of, my generation from the 80s onward, right up there with like, John Williams and, Jerry Goldsmith and people like that. The other guy, I can never remember his name, who did Ghostbusters. And a lot of that guy who scored Ghostbusters and Saturn III, I can never remember his name. But for me, James Horner, is in the ranks of those individuals, and surely did, I'm sure he did some amazing scores that I haven't heard, but Rocketeer is for me one of my most favorite film scores, and just didn't he do the music for Batteries Not Included? He may have. Just hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. I mean, just a profound talent, obviously. So I feel like I'm going too long. I just started recording without any real plan for this video, other than I wanted to mention certain stuff that I've mentioned and stuff, but obviously, I would imagine that the plan was to have, maybe not, but I don't know. I would have imagined the plan would have had James Horner's score, Avatar 2, 3, and 4, which obviously, if that was the plan, is not going to happen now or whatever, so. Yeah, very, like Betsy Palmer was kind of different, because she was, not to say that, whatever, but she was 88. This guy's 61. I mean, he's in the prime, he could have went on and on and on and on. So anyway, speaking of going on and on and on and on, I feel like that's what I'm doing now. So in closing, thank you once again, James Horner, for just, I mean, the summer of '91 for me was basically the soundtrack of the summer, or not only the summer, but just 1991 for me. Was in so many ways James Horner's score for The Rocketeer. I mean, we drive around in the car, when me and my mom were driving around, I mean, I'd put the tape in the tape deck of Rocketeer, and it was my soundtrack for summer '91, And obviously, when I was 12 and dancing around in the living room to part of James Horner's score for Aliens. So, well, in closing, thank you very much again, James Horner, for your fantastic contribution to film music and just music in general. I mean, it's very easy to say that film music is only film music and not music, but I mean that's obviously hardly the case, or at least maybe it's becoming more of that, but at least in the good old heyday of film score composers like, James Horner and others, film music wasn't just film music, it was music as well, obviously. So I guess we'll cut the video there, and thank you very much, James Horner, for everything you did. It was appreciated and enjoyed by probably thousands and millions of people around the world. So that's hell of a contribution, so thank you very much.